All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to crack open a really critical part of the CPMAI, Phase 2, data understanding. This is the phase that, honestly, makes or breaks an AI project. It's the difference between building on solid rock or on a pile of sand. Let's make sure you know exactly what to look for.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with a quick map of the territory, just to get our bearings. Then we'll lock in the high-yield facts you absolutely have to know. After that, we'll break down the common traps the exam will set for you, put your knowledge to the test with a scenario drill, and finally wrap up with some memory hooks to make it all stick. Okay, let's kick things off with the big picture. What is this data understanding phase really? And maybe more importantly, why does the exam put so much weight on it? Okay, the number one thing you've got to get is this. Phase 2 is all about investigation. It's diagnostic. Think of yourself as a data detective at a crime scene. Your job is to observe, to document, to understand, but you absolutely do not touch the evidence. You're finally moving past all the talk from Phase 1 and getting your hands on the real data. It's strictly look, don't touch. And this right here, this quote says it all. This is why it's so important. Phase 2 is your project's ultimate reality check. It's the one thing that stops you from wasting months, maybe even years, and tons of money, only to find out your data was garbage to begin with. Getting this phase right literally saves projects from disaster. I really love this chef analogy because it just makes so much sense. In Phase I, you decided on the business problem. That's like deciding on the amazing dish you're going to cook. Well, Phase 2 is when you actually walk into the kitchen. You open the pantry, you look in the fridge, and you ask, do I really have the right ingredients? Are they fresh? Am I missing something critical? You have to know this before you even think about turning on the stove. For the exam, you need to think of Phase 2 as this vital bridge. It takes all the big ideas, the business goals, and all the assumptions from Phase 1, and it tests them against the cold, hard reality of your data. And the report you create here, your data quality assessment, is what you hand over to Phase 3. It connects the what we want to do with what we can actually do. Okay, let's get into the high-yield facts. Pay close attention here, because these are the non-negotiable, must-know concepts that will definitely show up on your exam. So you've really got 4 core jobs in this phase. And look at the verbs here. Collect, describe, explore, verify. See the pattern? It's all passive. You're gathering, documenting, and checking. You're not fixing, you're not cleaning, you're not changing a thing. You are simply building a case file on the current state of your data. Now, this is a big one. This is a point that trips up a lot of people. You might see things like planning for training data or assessing third-party models and think, wait, shouldn't that be later? Nope. The planning for it, defining the requirements, happens right here in Phase 2. It's a classic exam trap to think this happens in a later phase. You have to figure out your game plan early. Look, if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, please make it this. Phase 2 is where you identify the problems. You find the mess. Phase 3 is where you fix them. You clean up the mess. You find the leaky pipe in Phase 2. You call the plumber in Phase 3. Burn that distinction into your brain. All right, so you know the rules. But the CPMAI exam is tricky, right? It's going to test if you can apply those rules under pressure. So let's look at the most common traps that people fall into for this phase so you can see them coming a mile away. And here is trap number 1, the big one. Confusing data understanding with data preparation. I'm telling you, the exam writers love to blur the lines here to see if you know exactly where that boundary is. Here's a perfect example you'll see. A question describes a PM who finds that 20% of a column is just empty. The act of finding that and documenting it, that is pure Phase 2. But the absolute second the question mentions doing anything about it, filling in the values, deleting the rows, you name it, bam, you have crossed the line into Phase 3. Know that line. Okay, trap number 2 is a little more subtle, but it's just as dangerous. It's just taking a stakeholder's word for it. You're in a meeting, someone says, oh yeah, we've got tons of amazing data for that, and you just nod and move on. No way. That is a critical failure. So the key thing to remember is that collect initial data is not optional. The CPMI methodology demands that you get a real sample of that data and verify it with your own 2 eyes. The exam wants to know that you get this. Assumptions are the absolute enemy of a successful AI project. Don't trust, verify. Okay, enough theory. Let's put this into practice. You've got the facts, you know the traps to avoid. Time to run through a couple of quick exam-style scenario drills. Let's see what you've got.
All right, here's the first one. Read it carefully. What is the project manager actually doing? What are the key verbs in that sentence? Are they investigating or are they fixing? Did you get it? The answer has to be phase 2. The magic words are documenting and noting inconsistencies. These are classic detective actions. The PM isn't changing anything, not standardizing the timestamp, nothing. They are purely assessing the situation. That is the absolute heart of data understanding. Okay, ready for round 2? This one's a little bit tougher. It's designed to throw you off a little bit because it uses words like training and model. Don't let it fool you. The key to unlocking this question is that one little word, requirements. You are not training a model. You're not even building one. You are defining the rules and the plan for how the data will eventually be used. That strategic planning work is a critical task that belongs right here in phase 2.
Nice job with those drills. Okay, let's lock this all in. We're going to wrap up with a few simple memory aids to make sure this knowledge is right at your fingertips when you're sitting in that exam. Seriously, always come back to the chef. It's the best way to remember this. Before you start cooking, you take inventory. You ask, what ingredients do I actually have? That's collecting and describing. What am I missing? That's exploring for gaps. And hey, is anything spoiled here? That's verifying data quality. It maps perfectly. And if you want an even faster shortcut, use these simple if-then rules. If you see words like investigating, assessing, or exploring, your brain should just scream phase 2. If you see words like fixing, cleaning, or labeling, that's a hard signal for phase 3. These rules will help you cut through the noise in a complicated question and get to the answer fast. So let's bring it all home. Phase 2 is your project's safeguard. It's the mandatory reality check that you perform before you start spending the big money and committing all those resources. You have to remember, it's never about just having a ton of data. It's about having the right data. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. On your next AI project, what is the very first data question you're going to ask?